When a potential employer asks you what you like to do when you're not working, they're looking to get a feel for your likability and your culture fit. So your mission here is to provide something that'll give them a favorable impression and make you an across-the-board yes. So what should you say? And what should you not say? Here are a few tips. First, know that there's not one correct answer. You can share something about your hobbies, your volunteer work, or the places you enjoy traveling to. Or maybe you're taking night classes to help you accelerate your skills. That's also an excellent thing to mention. In general, you just want to share something that's true and that'll paint you as an interesting, healthy, tenacious, or genuinely good human being. Next, remember to keep it succinct. If you're a bird watcher in your free time, no one needs to hear some 22-minute account of every species you've ever documented. Share, and share enthusiastically so that your passion shines through. Just don't ramble on endlessly. Doing so might give the people that you're trying to make a good impression on the feeling that you're nervous or that brevity just isn't your strong suit. And finally, steer clear of the inappropriate zone. You would think that this would be obvious, but inappropriate can mean something much more subtle than divulging how much you like internet gambling or drag racing down I-5 with your buddies every weekend. As a rule, avoid anything that might be polarizing or offend somebody who's not a part of a particular group, like politics or religion. You've got a great opportunity here to show them that you're the complete package. Take full advantage. How might a candidate tackle this question? Let's take a look, and then I'll share some feedback.
Well, a lot of my spare time lately has been dedicated to teaching myself how to shoot and edit instructional videos. I've been a garage sale shopper for several years, and I sell my finds on eBay to pay down my student loan debt. So far, I've raised $11,000. People who find out that I do this often have a lot of questions about how to get started, how to find best stuff, on how to market items on eBay. So I've decided to put a few tutorials up on YouTube. That way people can learn through the videos and I gain a new creative skill.
I love this answer. You convey a lot of energy both with your words and your hand gestures. I'm getting the picture that you're resourceful, financially responsible, willing to share your talents with others, and focused on self-improvement. Now, I might suggest a tiny bit of care not to get too excited with this answer. You don't want an employer to fear that the side hustle is going to take up so much of your time and attention that you've got little left for your day job. But you stayed on the right side of the line with your answer. Well done.
I'm Linda Rayner, career strategist and coach, and I've helped hundreds of job candidates land their dream job offers. Now, when it comes to answering the "where do you see yourself in 5 years" interview question, I've seen a lot of people struggle with answering this question. And that's completely natural because some of us don't even know what we're doing tomorrow, let alone in the next 5 years. But the key that you want to remember to answering this question successfully is to focus on what you can give to the employers rather than what you plan to get out of the company or the role. So let's talk about it through 3 specific tips. The first one is to break your answer down into 2 to 3 year chunks. This helps the interviewer to visualize and see exactly what you're describing. What do you plan to do in the first 2 to 3 years, and how do you plan to take it up a notch in the 2 to 3 years after that? The second tip is to make sure that you focus on the high-level intentions that you have for the role and the value that you plan to deliver within each of those 2 to 3 year chunks that you describe. And finally, the third tip is to stay away from talking about job titles that you want to get in the next 2 to 3 or 5 years, because that can come off as overly presumptuous. So to recap, make sure that you break your answer down into 2 to 3 year chunks. Talk about your high-level intentions and value that you plan to offer in the role, and then finally stay away from job titles. Using these tips, you'll be able to answer this "where do you see yourself in the next 5 years" interview question successfully. Let's see how the job candidate approaches this question. I'll be back in a moment to offer some feedback.
In the first 2 or 3 years, I plan to immerse myself in the position by leveraging my strong Excel knowledge to develop automated reports and processes. The goal would be to improve efficiencies and reduce time spent on manual tasks. Within 2 to 3 years after that, I see myself using that experience to help other departments develop similar efficiencies.
The way you answered this was great. You broke it down into 2 to 3 year chunks, explaining what you could give related to your Excel skills rather than what you plan to get from the company. And you also didn't mention any job titles that you hope for in the future. And what I really liked was that you genuinely looked and sounded excited when talking about your 5-year vision. I was convinced that you're committed to the role.
Describe your leadership style. This is a question you're often going to get, and I'm going to walk you through a few tips how to do so. I'm Mike Derezen. I'm the Vice President at LinkedIn Learning Solutions, and the most important thing I want you to walk away with is be authentic in how you answer that question. So the 3 tips I have for you. First, know and own your leadership style. If you're a team builder, say so. If you're tough but fair, own it. Be very concise and clear on how you define your leadership so that you know very clearly what you're all about. The most important thing is don't be vague and don't be ambivalent. Know who you are. Now, once you've established your leadership style, the second tip that I want you to think about is how do you give an example that highlights it? So typically, you want to start with a situation, potentially a problem or an obstacle, and then walk through what did you actually do, and more importantly, what was the result? What did it mean to your organization? What did it mean to the company? What did it mean to a customer? And be sure to include how you brought your team along, because this isn't all about you. Remember, this is about being a leader, and this is what you did to bring your team with you. And then third, most importantly, is you want to show situations where you've adapted. Life's not going to be simple. People want to see how you've adapted, how you've grown, how you've changed given the situation. Just like you look for that in the people you're going to hire, the same thing with the hiring manager who's looking to hire you. How do you adapt and grow? So those 3 tips, if you follow them, will help you answer this question. But remember, most of all, be authentic, be yourself. So let's see how someone might answer this question, and I'll be back in a few minutes to give you my thoughts.
For me, good leadership is about finding the best analytical approach while still caring about the people on the team. Last year, I took charge of a digital marketing campaign that wasn't getting any traction. I realized our team members didn't know what was expected. We worked together to build new metrics. I gave more responsibilities to our most engaged team member and helped another one find a different job where he could be more effective. Within 3 months, we were hitting our numbers and morale was vastly better. When we were ready to expand, 5 internal candidates asked if they could join our team. I love building productive, successful teams, and it sounds as if there would be great opportunities to do that in the job we're talking about.
That was a great answer. There's a lot I liked about it. So first, what I really liked is how you talked about what your overall philosophy was, how you're an effective leader. And then you brought us into a live example. You shared an example of something that was a challenge, what you did, the results that you captured from it. And you talked about how you brought the team along. So this wasn't just about you. This was about how you brought people with you on this journey. And you just wrapped it up really cleanly too with how it connected back to the organization. So great job.
I'll never forget the feedback I got after one of my top candidates had just been interviewed. To my extreme surprise, I learned that he wasn't moving forward because he'd seemed uninterested at the end of the conversation. I'm Jenny Foss. I'm a recruiter, a career coach, and founder of JobJenny.com. Turns out that candidate had replied no to the critical end of interview question, "Do you have any questions for me?" It's essential that you respond with a yes and be ready to ask a few. This question is your test. They want to see if you're engaged, intelligent, and interested. And it gives you an opportunity to end on a strong note. So what types of questions should you ask? Here are a few to consider. Number 1, questions that show you've been paying attention. Jot down a few notes as the interview unfolds and then loop back to something that you'd like to delve further into, like an aspect of the job, the team, or the challenges that lie ahead. 2, questions that show you're genuinely excited. Certainly you can demonstrate that you're qualified, but you might clinch this by showing that you've got passion for their products, the brand, or this industry. So maybe you ask a question about one of your favorite products, or see how they're responding to an industry trend. And 3, questions that get them talking about their careers. I cannot emphasize this enough. People appreciate when you notice the interesting things that they're doing, and they love talking about themselves. So maybe you're wondering how they got from job X to job Y, or if they find that their first job as a violinist helps them in the job that they have today. Now, don't get too personal, but do show genuine curiosity. People hire people that they like and people who seem genuinely interested in the role. How might someone reply to that question? Let's look at an example and I'll be right back with a few thoughts.
I do have a few questions. Thanks for asking. We talked a bit about your plans to invest in training opportunities for your current employees, especially those who will be managing the company's transition to a centralized billing system. I think this is a great plan, and I'd love to support the curriculum development. Now, will most of the training modules be designed by this team? And will they be delivered in person, via webinar, or a video format? Or will you be using a hybrid approach?
This is a great example of that first type of response that we discussed. It's the type of reply that shows you've been paying close attention to the conversation and that you want to delve a bit further into a topic that you've just discussed. You're also using words and body language to convey a lot of enthusiasm about supporting what sounds like a priority project for that organization. Well done.
I'm Linda Rayner. I'm a career strategist and coach, and I've helped hundreds of job candidates land their dream job offers. So when it comes to answering the past experience or the tell me about a time interview question, the key is to tell a compelling story. And that's because as humans, we are naturally drawn to listening to really good stories. So if you can tell a good story in your interview, that's definitely going to increase the employer's interest in you. And so to start your story, just like in any good movie, you want to describe the situation, the initial events that occurred, what were the problems that you were experiencing. This is a really key part of the story, so it should be about 3 to 4 sentences long. And then from there, you want to get into the action steps. So talk about the key milestones that you went through. Don't go into too much detail. It should only be about 2 to 3 sentences, but try to use active verbs, things like I implemented or I persuaded, things like that. And then from there, you want to get into the results. Try to include a clincher at the end talking about dollars saved or improved profitability. That will help to really solidify your results and that you did a great thing. So if you want to remember how to answer this past experience type of interview question, you just have to remember the framework SAR, and that stands for situation, action, and results. And if you use this framework, you'll be able to answer any type of past experience interview question. I'm interested to see how our candidate answers this question. Let's see what they say, and I'll give you insight on what worked after they're done.
Recently, there was a situation where my manager needed to take medical leave and was unable to come into work for a few weeks. This coincided with a major deadline that he was leading. I knew that if this project wasn't completed on time, that we were at risk of losing a major client. I looked at my right and left, and there wasn't anyone else who could own the project. So I jumped in with both feet and took initiative. I went through the files and developed a schedule detailing exactly what needed to be completed and worked closely with my coworkers to ensure they were on board too. In the end, we were able to complete the project by the deadline. The client was pleased and stayed on as a loyal customer to the company. When my boss came back, he gave me an end of quarter bonus because he was really impressed that I was able to rally everyone to complete the project.
This was a strong response. I felt like I could visualize exactly what was happening from the details that you shared. I liked the way that you articulated the steady flow of events, you spoke in a compelling tone, and that helped me to stay engaged. And I really liked that you described how you got your coworkers on board and met the deadline to ultimately keep your loyal client. Your story shows me that you have strong leadership potential. Let's see how a candidate might handle this question. I'll be back momentarily with some detailed feedback.
I was asked to work on a high-profile project that included collaborating with a new team and tons of people across the larger organization. We were spread out across the globe, which meant time zones were tricky and we could never meet face-to-face. Communication was starting to get confusing and people were losing important details. It became apparent that this project was going to fail if we didn't have a new strategy. So I met with various team members and engaged them in a process to design a communication system that would work a lot better. We used an asynchronous project management tool called Asana to help streamline who was doing what and when it was getting done, and we could all update it in real time. We then did weekly check-in and designed a protocol to share relevant updates so that we didn't get bogged down with details that took us off track. I also developed a detailed outline of many goals and milestones, and the meetings were led by us checking in against that document. In the end, the team made massive progress. We completed the project on time, and it was praised extensively by the client. The team thanked me for helping to course correct. We also continue to use these tools, and they are what make our team so much more efficient at what we do.
This was a great way to answer this question. You started off discussing a specific situation and the issues involved with having to work on a global team. And then you talked about the specific action steps you took, such as implementing a new work process. And then you concluded with the positive results and the teamwork skills that you demonstrated along the way. It's clear that you're able to see the bigger picture, you seem optimistic, and I'm sure that was what led to your success.